You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
To get up to like $68,000, my heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started again.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your website, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
I'm not ready to end the fight. I'm not ready to back down. 'Cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. 'Cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
All right, folks. Well, happy Thursday. This is the Jen and Rick Show. I am Rick. She is Jen, and it is Thursday, May 26, 2016. And we're going to start off the show by not talking about the election, because if I keep talking about the election, I think my eyes are going to pop out of my head and they may start shooting blood. We may touch on the election in the last half of the show, but first half, we have something that I kind of thought was entertaining, and Jenn happened to point it out, and I found the audio. So, going to give her a minute to say good evening, and then we'll probably jump straight into the audio. So, good evening, Miss Jenn. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, other than the, sad death of the party I once belonged to today.
Yeah, welcome to the what did Trump call it today? A workers'
The workers'
party? The workers' party,
comrade.
Yeah, duh. I mean, seriously, come on. But anyway, we'll talk about that in the second half. I can't lead off with that, or I'm going to be screaming the whole show, and nobody wants that. Well, some people do, but I don't. All right, so you had mentioned a bit of an audio clip that you heard from Senator Cotton actually talking about some shenanigans on the Senate floor these last several days, and we actually found the audio, so I think we're going to go ahead and open with that. So sit back, grab some popcorn. It's got a couple funny parts.
It's an honor to serve the people of Arkansas. I would never complain about the tasks that we're given. There is one small burden I bear, though. As a junior senator, I preside over the Senate. I usually do it in the morning, which means I'm forced to listen to the bitter, vulgar, incoherent ramblings of the minority leader. Normally, like every other American, I ignore them. I can't ignore them today, however. The minority leader came to the floor, grinding the Senate to a halt all week long, saying that we haven't had time to read this defense bill, that it was written in the dead of night. We just had a vote that passed 98-0. It could have passed unanimously 2 days ago. Let's examine these claims, that we haven't had time to read it. 98-0, and in committee, all the Democrats on the Armed Services Committee voted in favor of it. When was the last time the minority leader read a bill? It was probably an electricity bill. What about the claims that it was written in the dark of night? It's been public for weeks. And this coming from a man who drafted Obamacare in his office and rammed it through this Senate at midnight on Christmas Eve on a straight party line vote? To say that the senator from Arizona wrote this in the dead of night, slipped in all kinds of provisions, that people didn't have time to read it, that is an outrageous slander. And to say that he cares for the troops, how about this troop and his son and his father and his grandfather, 4 generations of service, to include almost 6 years of rotting in a prisoner of war camp? Say that he's delaying this because he cares for the troops? A man who never served himself? A man who in April 2007 came to this very floor before the surge had even reached its peak and said the war is lost, when over 100 Americans were being killed in Iraq every month, when I was carrying their dead bodies off an airplane at Dover Air Force Base. It was an outrage to say that we had to delay this because he cares for the troops. We're delaying it for one reason and one reason only, to protect his own sad, sorry legacy. He now complains in the mornings that the Senate is not in session enough, that our calendar is too short. Well, whatever you think about that, the happy byproduct of fewer days in session in the Senate is that this institution will be cursed less with his cancerous leadership. I yield the floor.
Cursed less with his cancerous leadership.
So
now, hang on. Just and then I'll let you have the floor, I promise.
Go ahead.
The C-SPAN networks bring you long-form public affairs programming from the nation's capital and are a public service of your television.
There we go. Okay. So just one point. I believe, isn't it Mr. Trump who actually donated to Harry Reid?
Yes, that's a good point. He did. He has supported pretty much all of the leadership in office of the Democratic Party. Interesting. And full disclosure here, Senator Cotton has a little bit of a personal, a constituent stake in this bill. It protects Arkansas from any base closures. Because Obama has requested the authority to do another BRAC, which is the base realignment and closure. to do another background, and this defense bill would protect Arkansas from having any base closures. So just full disclosure there. But, you know, it provides for all of these other things, including, you know, strengthening the requirements, reporting and monitoring and dealing with all the Guantanamo Bay transfers that Obama is so has placed such high importance on releasing, and he put it in a really good way, I thought, in a statement that he released that said, this funding will ensure our national security strategy can once again begin to drive our military budget rather than the budget setting our strategy. And then removing wasteful, inefficient spending on projects that yield very little benefit. So basically he's saying that this budget will no longer have a stranglehold on our strategy, which many in Congress and even a few Democrats, especially on various different committees, have suggested have crippled our ability to actually fight ISIS and other threats around the world. So I loved that he just hit him so hard about and compared it to Obamacare and how that was pushed through and how no one needed to read that in order to pass it. But we need to give them more time. And and Reid, you know, lied, saying that there hadn't been time for this bill to be read. We all know Harry Reid is a jerk. I'm just glad that someone said it on the Senate floor.
I like how he pointed out that normally I would do what 90% of Americans do and ignore him, but this is the one time I can't do that.
Right. No, it was so funny. It's one of these reasons why I love someone like Cotton in office, because, hey, by the way, all you Trump fans, that is the version of politically incorrect and hard-hitting, telling it straight kind of politician and leader that I want, not someone who just calls names and makes derogatory comments about somebody. There's no strength in that. What Cotton just did and standing up to the leader, to the minority leader on the Senate floor, was exactly the kind of brass balls that I look for in a leader. But, you know, that's just me.
Yeah. Now instead of brass balls, we're looking at ceramic ovaries, and I mean that for both of them.
That's good. That's good. Also so sexist, Rick.
Hey, I'm a conservative. I'm allowed to be sexist. It's part of what we do. Remember, we're the women hating party. You should know this. You're you're in the party. You should know how much we all hate you.
I know. I get oppressed and degraded every day.
Now go make me a sandwich. Some spice.
Well, would you like white or wheat and mustard or mayo?
I figured you'd pop off like Bunny does when Hammy does it and be like, do you want the arsenic on the cheese side or the bread side?
No, I am a dutiful little Republican wifey.
Nice. Oh.
Oh, boy. Anybody that knows me would certainly knows how sarcastic that is.
I kind of figured when you said wifey. It's not usually the term someone uses when they're not trying to be sarcastic.
Oh, man.
Okay, so anything particular that stood out to you this week so far in the news cycle other than the 1237 that we'll get to later?
Trump not knowing what a verb is?
Wait, so we're shocked that Trump has no language skills? Have you not looked at his Twitter account?
That was so funny, though. I mean, you name several things and say verb, and not a single one was, not one of the three that he said. I know it was like female, veteran, something else. Finding it. Oh my gosh, it just cracked me up because he was so emphatic about it. And then all of his supporters, oh, you've never misspoke. And I'm like, okay, yeah, no, we all have. But this is no longer just a little, gaff here or there. I mean, this is constant. It's just constant. It's just one more example of how ridiculous, what a position we're in, that this is now the nominee for the Republican Party. This is what we got.
Yeah, and it's to put it in a succinct word that I see in one of the groups that we're in, there are 350 million Americans in this country, and we have an authoritarian butthole and an American-hating harlot, an American-hating heartless harlot as finalists for the presidency. This is where we are in America.
I know. I know. It's just getting to a point that I don't even, we can continue to talk about how we won't vote for Trump and how Trump doesn't represent the majority of conservatives' values, even if they're choosing to vote for him. He shouldn't represent this party, and that he is a, opportunistic, leftist, charlatan demagogue. But I mean, this is what it is. And now what the heck not only do we do, but I mean, people in the GOP that, refuse to go third party, what do they do? I mean, how hard is this on them? Because I don't know how how do we go from here? How does the GOP ever return to something else? And the answer is, I don't think it can. I think it now becomes a populist party.
It is now forever the Populist Workers' Party.
Yeah. Gosh, that's sobering and sad.
And it brings me back to a point that I've been making now for weeks on Twitter, and I keep getting resistance, and I don't understand it. For the first time in our history, we have 60% of the population that doesn't like either of the two frontrunners. So how is it that we cannot cobble together a decent third-party movement, especially behind somebody like Austin Peterson, who actually does embody a lot of the same things that everybody wants? I mean, because the thing, and I was talking about this with some guys that I email back and forth with when I'm at work when it's slow. Dave, one of the guys I used to do the Finding Common Ground show with, and the guy that used to do Liberty Unfiltered. And we were talking about that this election cycle has basically made a lot of people centrist. Because you've got the really far left people, you've got the really far right people, and now you've got the authoritarian populist Workers' Party people, and everybody else is just kind of in the middle going, hey guys, none of this really represents me at all. And and we were talking about that, and I was like, is it really that we have changed, or has politics just changed so much that we're realizing that it's in a place that 60% of the country doesn't want to be, and we still feel like we're stuck? How does that make sense? 60% of the country does not want either of these two people, and somehow we still feel like we are stuck making a choice between one of those two.
Rick, the people have spoken. Haven't you heard? That's what they tell me all the time. The people have spoken. This is what they want. They don't care about these other polls and these other people. The American people have spoken. It doesn't matter what we Americans who don't want this want. This is what it is, and we have to make a choice. It's either her or it's him. And, I just have really come to people, especially online, telling me that, that a third party is a useless option. And I do, in a lot of ways, sometimes agree that if you're voting that way, I don't like revenge voting. I don't like spiteful voting. So I know that sometimes people vote third party because they're mad at whoever is elected for petty small reasons. This is a very large thing. He in no way, shape, or form represents my values or principles, nor that of what is supposed to be the conservative movement. So it's in all good conscience that I can choose a third party to vote for or write in. I'd rather do a third party. And I'd like to see that actually have an impact this election for the first time in a very long time. I think people are just too resigned to the two-party system. And It has changed in our history before, where at least one of the two parties has been booted for a new party. So why can't that be something that happens now? Why can't our voices be heard in that way, that, you know, maybe the GOP is actually dead and we resurge with a newer party? And the Populist Party becomes the third party that's a little bit more, you know, fringe.
No, I mean, I completely agree. And I guess that's one of the things that's been driving me crazy, because our election cycles have become the epitome of Einstein's definition of insanity.
Yep.
We keep repeating the same setup with the same two parties over and over again, that over time have not necessarily even become two parties anymore, but basically mirror images of each other. And we keep thinking that if we just vote for this one this time, something's going to be different. And if we just vote for this one, because that one obviously didn't do what they said they were going to do the last time, so now we got to give this one a shot, because it's going to be different this time, and it's going to be better. And then it's not. So then they're like, well, that didn't work, so let's go back over to this one again, pull this lever. I mean, dude, when do we realize that at this point, no matter which lever we pull, unless we actually make some sort of a real change instead of being fed these perceived changes, when are we going to understand that the only real change can be made by us, the American people? Because we've lost our way. We did it a long time ago. And that's the scariest thing about it. I mean, the scariest thing is when you realize that if you really stop and look at it, the two closest things to really good presidencies we've had in my lifetime were Reagan and Clinton, believe it or not. And that's pretty scary. When you compare Clinton to the Democrats of today, other than the fact that he couldn't keep it in his pants, decided to lie about it, and did all kinds of shady things behind the scenes with businesses, which don't get me started with that, because I found out once I got a little older, there were all kinds of things that Reagan did behind the scenes that nobody knew about. And he's still a hero of mine, but there are things that nobody knows that he did. And a lot of the things that he did were trying to come out around the same time that Clinton started getting in trouble for the Lewinsky thing and throwing missiles at the aspirin factory and everything else. So nobody really knew about them. But they're there if you go look. Reagan was a great president, but he was not necessarily always the guy who made the right decisions. But no president is ever going to make all of the right decisions.
They're all human. I mean, even look at our founders. They all have some very serious flaws. Doesn't make them any less significant or wise. Clinton too is funny because, like you were saying, like compare him to Democrats now, he's a damn conservative.
And it is really true.
I mean, comparatively, and especially when we got Donald Trump at the helm. I mean, Clinton is practically a conservative compared to where we are now.
I don't understand how we got where we are. I really don't. I mean, I knew that a lot of us were asleep. I just didn't realize that when we finally managed to wake everybody up, they were going to be like, yeah, that Constitution, we don't need that crap no more. Let's vote for the guy with the tribble on his head. He'll be the one to fix everything. Come on, Rick, get in line. Let's go. No.
Right. Well, I also think that I've got so many people that really it's this way in which like they've conformed into because of their, and we've talked about the parallels between like the Trump rise in popularity and fame and Obama's, and how the Trumpkins are the new, Obama worshipers. I mean, they're the same kind of people. They spout off the same kinds of things. And I think that's a lot. I think that's a pretty fair comparison, just in the blind devotion. But then there's also just a huge chunk of smart people that I do in a lot of ways respect and understand where they're coming from, and that they're just so incredibly anti-Hillary that they know that he's not good. They didn't ever support him leading up to this, and now they just feel like they have to because he is the only option to beat her, instead of wanting to make a splash with a third party and for kind of the conservative movement, they would just rather keep her out of office. And you and I were talking about this off air. Is that really the best thing? In my book, people say, oh, the enemy versus the enemy you don't. Well, in this case, Hillary is the enemy I know, and Trump is the enemy I don't, other than what he's put forth. And I remember things that I was told growing up and teachers say, and it's when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And Trump has showed us who he is. I don't care how many other interviews he does where he jokes around with Megyn Kelly, or he, walks back something that he said. There is enough on record where he has shown us who he is, not just once, not just twice, but hundreds of times. So I believe him. And I know who Hillary is too, but Hillary is fightable. Our party can fight Hillary and be justified in doing so. Our party can fight Trump if he's in office, but they will not be justified in the eyes of the nation because they nominated him, they pushed him, they got him into office.
And that is the conundrum we are going to find ourselves in. And it's one reason why I understand the folks that are mentioning, I believe it's the Hamilton Doctrine, which is if we're going to have an enemy in office, then let them not be an enemy of our own making, but an enemy of an opposite party, because at least then they're not taking our party down with them. So I understand the folks that at this point are even willing to support Hillary to try to make sure that Trump doesn't get into office. I'm not one of those people. I can't support either one of them. But I understand the mindset, because it's exactly what you and I have been talking about. At this point, if something doesn't drastically change before November, then win or lose, the Republican Party, as we know it, is done. It's gone. It's been replaced. It's morphed into something crazy. I mean, the Republican Party, in and of itself, to take things sci-fi for a second, has basically become the political version of the Borg, because you either go along with everything that they say, how they say it, when they say it, and do everything they tell you to do, or they're going to either take you out or make you do it. I mean, while you were talking a minute ago, scrolled through my Twitter timeline again. I saw 4 different graphics with the same imagery. Had a train on it and said Trump train 2016. Get on board or get out of the way.
Yeah. And I told you about a guy that is a longtime follower. It kind of, sometimes you get these people that you talk to a lot on something like Facebook or Twitter, and they kind of become your online friend, and you build a rapport and you continue to interact. And whether you agree or disagree on many things, you build a mutual respect for each other. And this was one of these guys, and we'd really, during Planned Parenthood, he had just the video scandal. He'd been right there in step with me, just nailing them to the wall. He's been with me on so many things that he retweets all my stuff. We interact, we talk about things, and sometimes our methods are a little different, and sometimes we have a little bit different view of situations. But we mostly are, lock in step. And he has not been a Trump supporter, but he is resigned to vote for him. And now that, he's the nominee. And so he decided to tweet me today and tell me to basically do the right thing and vote for Trump, or I'm supporting Hillary. So do the right thing, JR, is what he said. And I about lost it on him. I kept it pretty clean, but I don't take kindly to being told. And how dare you tell me that that's what the right thing is? I just don't understand how this, I love yours, Lord Cheesy Poof, is the right thing. Neither of them are, and I don't have to have my hands stained by either of them.
This is true. Sorry, I got kind of distracted for a second there. There's one of our friends was in a pretty big Twitter argument and then just actually wound up getting blocked by someone who was calling him a coward. I thought that was kind of funny. But anyway.
I love that.
So, no, as far as the whole, the Lord Cheesy Poof thing, I guess apparently maybe I can't take credit for that. I never heard this, but apparently Glenn Beck has been calling him Lord Cheeto now for a while. Now, to be fair, I never heard it, but I have had several people point out to me that I must be some sort of Glenn Beck sycophant because I took his saying and morphed it into one of my own. I was like, I never even knew he said that. But anyway,
that's ridiculous.
So speaking of Beck, real quick, and then we got to take a break. He had an author on with him yesterday. I'm not
one of my faves.
Not that. Well, I guess that answers that question. I was going to say I'm not that sure if you're that familiar with him, but Brad Thor, who happens to be really, really staunchly never Trump, and apparently Brad Thor made an off-the-cuff remark, and the Twitter trolls have gone completely nuts. They were tweeting his name with Secret Service and FBI attached, saying that he had made threats against the potential POTUS. And I have to admit, I haven't heard the interview. I don't know if anybody else has, but I find it rather hard to believe that Beck would allow someone to make a death threat on the air. So I don't see that happening.
No, I've listened to it and I've read the transcript, and oh, good grief, it does not come off that way at all. He says, so what do we do if Congress won't act as a patriot step up? And you can interpret this multiple ways, and I think they were discussing third party briefly right before this. So it's how he's explained it, is that there are two ways that you could take this, and how he meant it was more of the thing of like, is there a patriot that will step up to this cause and will, and if he gets in office, like who will thwart him basically? And people took that to mean assassination. He said, in the first instance, I was speaking to who will step up and take this reins of third party, because there have been people willing to back it. There's been Mitt Romney. There's even been Paul Ryan hinting at it. Possibly Cruz would join in on that. Who will be the patriot that steps up to do this third party run? And then secondly was they had been discussing his work as a political and military thrill writer, that in his books, this is the type of situation where, you go and someone, the hero of the story, like does what's best for the country. So it's all kind of convoluted and stupid. And of course they hear what they want to hear, and they desperately want Beck to be dethroned, and they hate Brad Thor because he's so incredibly never Trump.
Dude, it's funny that you mentioned that, because we have a show that runs here in the morning, and his PR director is always tweeting out pretty much 14, 15 times a day, Beck has gone completely crazy. So tune in to listen to Rod Eccles. And I'm just thinking, look, I understand that not everybody agrees with everything that Beck says. I don't ever agree with everything that Beck says. And honestly, I really don't have much time to listen to talk radio anymore, because I'm usually too busy planning out the stuff that I'm going to talk about to worry about listening to somebody else's. But at the same time, since when are we not allowed to give our opinions anymore? There was a group that was actually run by someone that had introduced themselves to me right around the same time as this election stuff started, and I actually removed myself from the group once because they had become completely and heavily pro-Trump. And I told them, I shared a few tweets with them and some of the things that were starting to really upset me that were being said, and said if the people that support this guy are also by default you people, because you're supporting him as well, then I don't want to be any part of this group. So the guy that runs the group was like, why did you leave? So he brings me back in. Well, then just about 2 weeks later, I'm looking around and I realize that group's gone. Well, he hit a really big milestone yesterday. He's got like 240,000 followers now. So I messaged him. I was like, hey, I just wanted to say congratulations on getting pretty close to 500,000 followers, and I've seen your account's been growing like crazy. And he's like, well, where did you leave the group again? I was like, no, I just assumed you'd removed me. He said, nope, it wasn't me. I said, well, then it obviously means that somebody else in the group has blocked me, because that's the only way to get me out of the group if you didn't remove me. And he went back and he checked. He said, well, I won't tell you who it is, but I have been able to confirm that you have been blocked, and I'm so sorry because I thought this was still America. I said, no, it hasn't really been for quite some time, but thanks for finally noticing.
Wait, so if you block someone in the same group as you, then it kicks them out of the group?
Correct.
Qué interesante. Interesting. This is something I needed to know. I had to make a whole new group because I could not figure out how to get someone out of there.
Yeah, just block them.
This was long. Nice. All right. Great. Good to know.
All right.
Really
So now that we've blown completely through the bottom of the hour break, we got to pay some bills. We'll be right back, folks.
Round and round, it's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could, 'cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
If you want to work until you keel over, have less of everything in retirement, or give back more of your hard-earned money to the stock market again, then just ignore me. But if you'd like to protect the money you save, receive a steady, predictable retirement income, and enjoy financial security for as long as you live, then listen to this. You can download a free report that reveals the wealth-building secrets Wall Street and the banks don't want you to know. You'll learn how you can get guaranteed growth, safety, and real prosperity without risking your money in the Wall Street casino, and how to get the money you need when you need it, simply by asking for it. This is the best way to have a 100% secure retirement, and know your money will last as long as you do. To learn more about this method and to get your free report, go to 29security.com. That's the number 29security.com. 29security.com. Go to 29security.com.
The staff of K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network is proud to announce that our very own Rowdy Rick Robinson has been selected as one of the top conservative talk show hosts in the nation for his program America Off the Rail. Again, congratulations to Rowdy Rick Robinson for a job well done and another reason to stay connected to K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network. The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started again.
Hey, this is Dave Bray, America's Patriotic Rocker. Just giving you a shout out. Make sure you stay tuned and listen in to K98 Talk.
If I could, 'cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
All right, folks, we are back. We are live. This is the Jenn and Rick Show, and I think we've let the Lord Cheesy Poof of the election cycle monopolize enough of our time. We're into the last half of the show, so we do have a few stories that we talked about wanting to at least touch on as we wound down the show, so I think we'll go ahead and start moving on with those, unless you have anything else you want to say about the orange one.
No, I'm done with him. I wish he was gone forever.
I feel exactly the same way, but let's be careful because somebody's going to think we're trying to assassinate him.
I was going to say, let's be clear. It's not. I mean, gone from my news cycle, gone from my party nomination, all that. He doesn't have to be gone from this earth, but just out of my politics. I wish he was gone.
Pretty much. Say we might want to clear that up, otherwise people are going to be like, "Oh my God, they were threatening to kill the POTUS! Oh no!"
It hurt our feels.
Dude, I guess that's the only thing that drives me crazy is all these people that are telling me that I'm the one that's selling out when they voted with their feels for a guy that tells you what you want to hear. But anyway, like I said, I'm really done talking about him. So, a couple of important things in the news cycle, or at least one majorly important one. President Obama has decided, in his ultimate wisdom, first he basically loosens embargoes with Cuba, kind of normalizes relations with them. Now he's lifted the arms embargo for North Vietnam.
Yes.
Say what?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And, typically with both of these countries, part of when they said that they were going to pursue these endeavors, they basically promised us that part of it would be because of they would, demand certain improvements in the human rights aspect. They have not. They have not at all. Now, Obama did say when speaking there, was it today? I think it was today. Maybe yesterday their time. He urged them, and they said it was hushed and quiet as he urged their country to improve their human rights. But at the same time, they were assuring them that they wouldn't dictate the terms of that. So, and everyone was just like silent because that's not going to happen, really. And a Human Rights Watch representative said that unlike what Obama has kind of tried to say, and Kerry also over there tried to say, is that little or no progress in Vietnam on the human rights front has happened, even since their 2014, where in 2014 they lifted part of the embargo, they lifted certain sanctions, and that was like in order to do that, they made them open up some restrictions on, or put some restrictions on labor and other such things. And Human Rights Watch says it has not made a difference. They're still doing whatever it is that they were always doing. So forced labor, child labor, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so, let's not forget that this is the same president who is so maligned and troubled with the fact that we have to be able to let people decide with their feelings which bathroom they should use, but we're going to normalize relations with people that actually still have child slave labor. What planet are we on again, and how did we get here?
And can I get off? Am I allowed to get off? I mean, between Obama and Trump and Clinton, and dude, even at this point, Bernie's just funny. I went off the ride called Earth.
Stop the world, Ma. I want to get off.
Well, and so what do you think about all... China is really threatened by this. They've had some activity where they've claimed part of the seas near Vietnam. That's all a real contested area. Like, it's a dispute on like who actually is supposed to be able to have control. They seem to be kind of threatening them. And so this, from what I've been reading, is that this move by Obama and basically the U.S. is that it kind of comes across as aggressive to China and a little bit of a slap in their face. Like, we're supporting Vietnam when China is basically their adversary.
Yeah, it's just, and you can see the posturing all over the place, and they're just completely freaked out, and it's just, I don't understand. Some of the things that he's done have made sense to me, because he is, and I don't know if it was because he spent a lot of time in a Muslim country, or if he's a closet Muslim. Look, I honestly don't care. I really don't care what his religious preference is. I just wish if he was a Muslim, that we would have been told that up front, because it seems to me that he leans pretty heavily towards the Muslim belief systems. We've never.
And honestly, actually, if he actually was or is, and I don't have any idea, but if he was or is, that actually might have been something that could have, in some ways, like maybe helped us in the last decade of dealing with some of this mess. Maybe not, but it just seems like maybe it could have been helpful to have been disclosed. I mean, there are so many, so many ways to kind of, guess about all sorts of things with him. He's been so incredibly secretive in a lot of ways, which is why his whole thing about like the most transparent ever is just so laughable. But this is just one more step to just, I don't even know. I mean, it's just one more way in which you can tell this like leftist ideology is just completely like infiltrated our president and his administration of, if we embrace them, then they will embrace us, then things will be better and the world will be better. And that's just not always the case. And you made China really mad. So that's not really good either, because they are definitely a threat, especially against this weak administration.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, am I upset that he made China mad? No, not really. I mean, but if you're going to make China mad, let's do it for a good reason, not to empower crazy people that still use child slave labor.
And they 100% do. Let's make no bones about it. They have forced labor. They have child labor. And, part of this whole thing about these new terms is that that's supposed to create unions to help eliminate all of this. And we know how much like unions are like just the pet project of leftists and Democrats. But there's no guarantees of any of this. There's no monitoring of any of this. So they can form unions to do whatever the heck they want to and have nothing to do with, child labor or slave labor, essentially. But we like to happily ignore all that because it makes us feel good to embrace these countries like this. And by we, I mean, obviously American leftists.
Well,
which I am not a part of, but that's who represents us right now.
Yeah, I was going to say the American lefties who lead with their feels, but apparently a lot of these so-called American righties aren't much better anymore.
Apparently not, but I'll still contend they're not right. They're not righties. They're not conservative. They never were if they can go this way.
So have you seen these videos that are going around, not to go back to Trump again, but just had to bring this up for a second. The videos that are going around that are like Meet the Trumps, and they've got like the headshots of Trump and family members and etc. And I've seen all of these things going around, and it's just that I've seen so many people that go, look, it looks like the Capitol's propagandist videos from the Hunger Games. And I'm like, ah, crap.
Oh my gosh, no, I have not.
Oh, but, yeah, they're scary.
And I do think that, like, his kids are pretty educated and accomplished and well-spoken and all of these things.
Which is probably why they didn't vote for him.
Go to that and are like, oh, but look, he must be great. Look at the kids he raised. And it's like, yeah, but I know some really great people that had abusive alcoholic parents that were never in their lives. That doesn't necessarily mean that he should be president. But, okay.
Well, apparently his kids are smarter than most Americans. They didn't vote for him.
Yeah. Or dumber in that, or kind of on par with other Americans in that they couldn't, in a timely manner get the right things done in order to be able to vote for him. But that's probably other people's faults.
You had to give him the benefit of the doubt. I just want to point out that his own children didn't vote for him. I don't want it to be because they were too stupid to know they needed to change their registration. But that was probably it.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that like many Americans, it's someone else's fault, according to them. Oh, also kind of like liberals, it's someone else's fault that they didn't meet the right requirements and take the correct steps in order to be able to vote for their dad. So, yeah, but New York sucks. That's basically what they've said about it, which is ridiculous.
So So just to put this in perspective, because you brought up an interesting point, I was trying to poke fun, but you do bring up an interesting point. So basically what they're saying is they didn't understand the rules well enough to know that they needed to change their registration, so they couldn't get it done in a timely manner. Yet they are the children of someone who was trying to run the entire country, who apparently didn't have the energy or time to explain to them how it works.
Well, he doesn't know.
But that's kind of my point. We're putting someone in charge of the country, or we now officially have a 50-50 shot at putting someone in charge of the country who has either knowingly murdered at least 4 people and probably more, or someone who wasn't intelligent enough to explain to his children how to change their nomination so they could vote for him.
Wait, I'll do you even better than that. Like, at least Hillary understands the system and the founding that she is trying to thwart. Trump, on multiple occasions, has fallen completely on his face about simple questions regarding our republic. And we know that's a dirty word to Trump supporters, but our republic, he has not understood and demonstrated that he does not understand the roles of the courts, the roles of the executive, and the roles, all 3 branches. He does not understand, does not know. He does not understand the primary process, as was demonstrated in Colorado. He is completely flying by the seat of his pants, is notorious for not listening to, advisors and people that could legitimately help him with these things. Why is this supposedly going to change if he gets into the White House? And he couldn't even be bothered to research various rules and contentions of voting laws to become the nominee, and doesn't understand constitutional law in any shape or form, or even what the role of government is in various capacities. How can we understand that he would then do that to be but he'll hire the best people? But he hasn't. He's had to fire people, and then he's kept people on that have been incredibly embarrassing, that have been involved in all sorts of not so great things, have spoken is spoken out ridiculously on topics.
Would you like to know why? I have him in his own words telling you, or saying exactly why he surrounds himself with the people that he does. It runs for about 22 seconds.
You become very successful. The people that you will like best are the people that are less successful than you. Because when you go to a table, you can tell them all these wonderful stories and they'll sit back and listen. Does that make sense to you? Okay?
No.
Always be around unsuccessful people because everybody will respect you. Do you understand that?
Okay.
Always be around unsuccessful people because everybody will respect you. Do you understand that?
That was actually recorded in a small impromptu gathering where he was, and you can hear it in his voice, he was being completely serious. The guy that in front of the cameras and everybody else says he surrounds himself with the best people admitted to a small group of people that he's more comfortable around people that are less successful than him because they will idolize him. And this is being played out in his campaign right now. He's gotten rid of the good people that he had, replaced them with even worse people, and now, what was it, yesterday or the day before, there were campaign documents that were accidentally emailed to the wrong places.
To Politico. They emailed them to Politico. The incompetency, and then beyond that, the just outrageous manner in which they operate in total is just crazy. It's just crazy, and that's who is running, and we're supposed to fall in line because he's going to change once in office. Hey, remember, maybe it was the end of March, beginning of April, when he said, now that he's pretty much clearly ahead and probably going to win the nomination, that he will take a turn to the more presidential. He'll start acting more presidential. He'll start speaking in a more presidential manner. He'll conduct himself in a more presidential way, and he'll start hiring more people that will advise him, that have advised other presidents and been, in this game longer, than he has or as other people have. And it didn't even last 24 hours. Like I said earlier, he has shown us who he is. Believe him.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to keep in mind with that is, as far as him showing everybody who he is, like I said, he actually surrounds himself with less successful people on purpose. And it's just one of those things where, and I go into this with everybody all the time, I'm like, if you listen to what he actually says, you will hear everything that you need to know. And you know what all of them say to me? Go read his website, because that's what he actually means. He's just not polished, so he says things off the cuff, and sometimes they come off the wrong way. And at first, it's one thing to hear that on Twitter, but it's been a little slower at the day job for the last few days because it's summertime, and we typically get a little slower around then. So I've actually had a chance to turn on a little radio here and there because I'm not constantly running around my cubicle like a chicken with my head cut off. But so I actually had a few minutes to listen to Rush, and I don't know why I bothered to turn him on yesterday, but I turned him on yesterday anyway.
It's like why I sometimes turn on MSNBC, whatever.
But so I hear him, and he has a caller, which Rush's callers are Rush's callers, but this one perked up my ears because it was a lady, and she was just on him for supporting Trump and hitting him and hitting him and hitting him and hitting him. And I actually heard Rush Limbaugh, of all people, say these words: before you get on to me about the things that he says, you need to go to his website so you can understand what he actually plans on doing. Rush Limbaugh basically said the same argument that I keep getting on Twitter, that if I really want to know who Donald Trump is, I should go to his website. It was built by somebody else besides Donald Trump.
Well, what's even more astounding about that is that this is the same man who, if you would have told him that, if a Democrat called in and said, go to Hillary's website to see what she's really about, he'd be like, I don't have to. I listen to her words. So just go ahead and shut up. But when
that was a decent Rush impression.
I wasn't even trying to. I was just being weird. I tend to just do voices when I just think stuff is so ridiculous. So, but he would tell you that is absolutely ridiculous when you can just watch her and listen to what she says. But with Trump, it's go listen to this or go read this instead because this isn't a good what he says, because he's so off the cuff and he doesn't use a teleprompter. He doesn't have a speech, all of those things are why it's like, whatever. Just go read his website. It's so insulting and it's so ridiculous, and they're just underestimating the crap out of Trump. He knows what he's doing.
More like that side's overestimating. All right, anyway, we are about out of time. So as we usually do, why don't you go ahead and let folks know where it is they can interact with you should they choose to do so.
So find me on Facebook or Twitter at J.R. Homestead, and check out a site I work on, misfits.weebly.com, and we're updating it daily and getting a lot of good feedback. So come over and read.
All right, and I, of course, am Rick Robinson. I'm the host of America Off the Rails every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on K98 Talk, as well as AMFM247.com, and Fridays at 6 o'clock Eastern on WNJC 1360 AM out of Philadelphia. So if you are so inclined, make sure you tune in for that show tomorrow. Miss JR will actually be joining me for part of that show, and then we'll do the usual ranting and raving that we always do. And then, of course, as a reminder, this is Memorial Day weekend. We are putting together a Memorial Day special. If you are a veteran or you know someone who was a veteran and you want to share their story or yours, please make sure that you reach out to Jesse's POV at K98talk.org. She's looking for as many stories as we can find. We're going to try to fill up as much of the weekend as we can with veteran-related stories. Also, quick shout-out to Jess, who will be spending the weekend at the Libertarian Convention, getting some coverage from us for that. And we do have remember how to talk in a second. We do have confirmation now that we will have a team also going to the RNC. I sadly will not be able to join them, but it should be interesting for the folks that are going to be able to go. And on that note, folks, we have got to get out of here because got to make room for, well, there's usually a show coming up after us, but I think since Jess has gone to 5 days a week, I don't think she's doing one on Thursday nights anymore. But anyway, so this is Vic Robinson. I'll be back with you live tomorrow night. Don't forget, tomorrow night is the third and final Trump can call. We'll open the phone lines about 15 after. Anybody that wants to tell me why they support Trump that can do it without sounding like a complete jerk is welcome to come on. Who knows? Maybe you'll convince me. I doubt it, but you can try. Anyway, we'll be back with you live tomorrow night, folks. And just remember, tomorrow is Friday. We're nearly there.
The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
I'm not ready to end the fight. I'm not ready to back down.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.